everyone, this is Jenny and we're back with another instalment of Wildlife Drawing TV. Now I don't know about you, but I have been finding drawing such a calming activity at the moment. And so I just wanted to say, if you're one of those people who think you aren't creative and that you can only draw stick men, I just want you to have a go. Honestly, we're not looking for perfect portraits, there's no pressure here today. We're just going to be using drawing as a way to focus the mind and also to forget our worries for a little while. Also, we do have the competition running again, so if you want to send in any of your drawings, however good you think they look, we will be giving away tickets to a future wildlife drawing class as well. So now to introduce our next scaly subject matter is Lauren from Animal Workshops. She is an expert in exotic animals, and a lot of her animals that she cares for have been rescued or rehomed to her. Today's subject matter has also a rescue, and you'll be able to see how happy and healthy he looks. So over to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Jenny. So today we are going to be talking about, learning about, and drawing our friend Simon. He is called a blue-tongued skink. Blue-tongued skinks can be found through Australia and Indonesia, and they can often be found hanging out in people's gardens, which people don't mind as they eat all the garden pests like the slugs and the snails. So why are they called the blue-tongued skink? Well, I think you've probably guessed. It's because they've got bright blue tongues. But why? Well, this is for defence. In the animal kingdom, bright colours or bold markings are warnings that that animal could be poisonous, venomous, or really dangerous. So what Simon would do if he's faced with a predator would be to open his mouth out wide, stick out his tongue, and the inside of his mouth is bright pink. And against this bright blue tongue, that's enough to warn off most animals. But do you want to know a secret? Simon is a great big pretender. He's not poisonous or venomous. But if a predator attacks from behind, blue-tongued skinks can drop their tails right off their body and just scurry away to freedom. Another excellent survival method. And their tail will actually regrow. It takes about a year to do so. Now, he is an omnivore, meaning he eats a little bit of everything. Now, his main diet consists of creepy crawlies, plants, and fruits. And their hard teeth allow them to crunch open the exoskeletons of beetles and the shells of snails. Their long tongues allow them to lap up all the juices and seeds from fruits, berries, plants and weeds. I'll pass you back to Jenny now, who's going to take you through drawing Simon.
Thanks, Lauren. Simon is truly one handsome fella. So today all you're going to need is some paper, something to draw with. I'm going to use pencil, then move on to pen, and then I also might add a little bit of colour at the end, so grab any colours that you might like to use as well. And you're also going to need a picture of Simon. So what I did was I paused the video and took a few screenshots of him in different positions, some close-ups, and just so I've got plenty to work with. So now, if you get all the things you need, we'll have a go. Okay then. As Simon is so long, what I've actually decided to do for this exercise is to focus in on what I think is the most interesting bit, which is his head. And so what I'll start to do is just start to put in that spine line. So what I'm going to do is I've got a close-up image here and I want to break that up into a series of simple shapes so I know where everything is before I start using my pen. So I'm going to start with the tip of his nose and I'm going to just follow where his spine would be, over his neck, up over his back. And his head here is a sort of an interesting kind of triangular shape. It's sort of a little bit bulgy here and then comes back into a kind of rounded triangle here. And then what I can see of Simon's legs, I mean, there's not a lot of them, to be honest. So what I'm going to do is just draw a couple of sausages of his, to just show where his limbs are. So we've got one sausage here, and that's his leg coming out of his body, and then this is the sausage here, which is his sort of forearm, and then that's his little hand kind of coming out. So what I'm doing is just sketching him out super lightly. We've got some grass here, looks nice and happy on that. his head. So like a lot of lizards, they have a really flat head. And so what we can do is sort of pick out that kind of flatness here. And I can see now that my original spine line was not quite right. So we can take that out, and his head is actually quite big compared to the rest of his body. And he's got quite a sort of snubby nose here. And coming back round. His eye is sort of equidistant between the tip of his nose and where his head starts turning into his body. So I know that the halfway point is sort of where his eye is, about here. And then of course we want to put in his magnificent blue tongue. So that's going to come up and curl up at the end here. Quite amazing, that tongue, really. And so because of that tongue, we'll need his mouth to be open. And just follow that down to get the shape of where his bottom jaw would be. It's a lot thinner, his bottom jaw, than the top. And then his sort of the chin. Does he have a chin, I wonder? Anyway, the end of his head is here, and then you can see how that line then flows back into his body here. Yeah, just cross-checking we've got everything. So in this, his eye actually has a sort of, he's got quite a heavy kind of brow coming over his eye like this, and then you can actually see the hint of his other eye on the other side. Can't see the eyeball, you can just see that little brow on the other side there. So just give him a little nod to where his other eye is, and then his nostrils about here, and yeah, just following it back. Make sure he's got a thick enough body, and then he's got some more grass here and a bit more here as well. So we can give him a nice sort of habitat, really, for him to be hanging out in. And so you see how I've broken him down into a series of simple shapes and lines, but always what I'm doing is just figuring out what shape is in relation to the next one. So I'm always looking at, where the smaller shapes are in relation to the bigger ones, and how the whole body fits together as one. That's how I plan him out. And now I'm quite happy with where all my lines are. What I'm going to start doing now is picking out some of the outlines with my pen. So I'm going to use one of these nice Japanese pens. I think they're intended for kind of drawing manga cartoons, but I actually find them really, really nice to draw with. And so what I'm going to do first is just, pick out those outlines. But with pen, you can't rub it out, so you have to be that little bit more confident, really. And so just make doubly sure that your lines are all correct before you go in. And then start to just mimicking the scales on his face there. And just down up his body. And so because we're not drawing all of Simon here, what I can do is just let my lines trail off, We're doing a sort of more detailed portrait here, just so we can really look at those interesting scales around his face and that amazing tongue. Those are the bits that really interested me. And when you're drawing with pen, it's quite nice if you want to use those repetitive lines in the same way as you would a pencil. I quite enjoy this kind of work. So now I have the basic outlines. What I'm going to do now is work into this pen drawing with a thinner fine liner. And what I want to do there is just pick out all of those details that the larger pen wouldn't have allowed me to be so delicate with. So something like the eye here. I'm just drawing in where that eye is. He's got quite a nice little beady eye. That's it, about that. And then, oh, I can see that his pupil is a little bit larger and elongated. So, but the trick is as well, always to leave that lovely circle of white in the eye, and that will show that your animal is alive. And looking at you. And then what I'm going to do is just start building up these eyes. When I'm working with pen, I like to be quite gestural and just be a bit quite free and easy with it. And because Simon is quite an interesting mess of sort of scales and shapes and things, this pen is actually going to be really nice for sort of capturing all those amazing sort of details and that sort of geometry of how everything kind of fits together around his face. And what I'm starting to do is just pick out those really interesting scales on his face. And all I'm doing is just looking at what shape they are and being faithful to that shape, however strange looking it is. And then just looking at the next shape along just to see what that looks like. Just using my pen quite lightly, just adding those scales in. Okay then, what I'm going to do now is hand you back over to Lauren, who's going to tell you a little bit more about the world of skinks, whilst I just fill in a lot more of Simon's scales here. So I'll hand you over to Lauren now, and I'll see you back here in a bit.
So to tell you a bit more about Simon, he is 13 years old, and in captivity, blue-tongued skinks can live for about 20 years. They can be found living in a wide variety of habitats, including grasslands, forests, woodlands and semi-desert areas. As where they live can get quite dry and dusty, they have specially adapted ears. So those holes on the side of his head, those are his ears. And you can see they've got this slight frill to them, which stops any excess dirt entering his ear. Now, blue-tongued skinks aren't endangered, but they are considered to be a vulnerable species. As relatively small lizards, blue-tongued skinks do have many different predators, such as snakes, larger lizards, dingoes, and even birds of prey. They're particularly vulnerable when they're young, as many juvenile blue-tongued skinks don't survive past their first year. Now, one of my favourite facts about blue tongues is that they don't reproduce like many other reptiles. They don't lay eggs. The females grow and hatch their eggs inside of their body before giving birth to live young. And they usually deliver about 5 to 15 babies at a time. It's just incredible. Now I'll hand you back to Jenny.
So as you can see, we're starting to get there. Simon's starting to become his wonderful scaly self. And so I thought I'm just going to take you through a couple of ways to shade in pen. This is a question I get asked a lot at the classes. And obviously these pens are very good for these sort of fine lines. But actually when you want to show that it's a three-dimensional object or animal that you're drawing, sometimes what you need to do is be a bit creative. And so there's a couple of ways of doing this. And the first way is to use lots and lots of repetitive lines in the same area. So in the area here where Simon's arm is sort of connecting to his body, that's quite a dark place. So if you just use lots and lots of repetitive lines, that often shows a lovely area of shade, but it doesn't, it's still quite subtle and still got a bit of a gradient to it. You can also use them again, like at the bottom here of his body, where his body meets the floor. That's going to be quite a dark area, so that's quite a nice way of doing it. I've done it here a little bit in the mouth, but you can always, if you need it to be darker, you can always build up and add those lines over lines. Another nice way of doing it is with dots, which is also called stippling. And sometimes when you've got a sort of a broader area, a sort of plainer area, and you want to just concentrate just a little bit of shading here where the tongue has a few folds in, and here where it comes out of the mouth, and just here, it's quite nice and it's quite satisfying to do that and just use it as just a nice little hint of some texture at the same time. And so you can do that around the eye as well, just to show that little bit of shadow. Also, it just makes a nice change from a nice blocky line as well. It's nice to have different marks within the paper. Another thing that you might like to know is that the mind is quite clever, and when you're drawing or viewing an animal that has lots and lots of small parts, so say for example the fur on an animal, or now here with Simon, the scales. And so actually what I have done is, I know I've drawn quite a lot around the face, but as we start to go further down the body, I'm going to draw less and less and have that sort of scaly pattern just fade out along the body. And the mind is quite clever, and so even though I'm not drawing every single scale in here, anyone viewing this will understand that the scales, continue all the way along down the body. And the same with the arms. You can just add a little bit of a touch here and there, and that will make sure there's enough information for anyone viewing the drawing to understand that that is what the texture is. So that's your get out of jail free card. So I'm just going to work into it a tiny bit more now, just a little bit. And then we'll put the finishing touches on and a spot of colour at the end. Okay then, right, almost finished. What I'm going to do now is just add a little bit more of an outline all the way over Simon, just to really define him and make him stand out from the page. Again here, you can spend some time just tightening up your lines here and there. I know I quite like to keep it quite nice and free and fresh. I think sometimes when you're drawing in pen, it's kind of nice to see all of your working outlines at the same time. One of the last things I'm going to do is just add a tiny touch. See, with those repetitive lines again, just give him a little bit of shadow, as we do in all the other drawings. Just a little bit of something just to show that he is on the ground. And same for around here. Just that little bit of weight and gravity, it just goes a long way to making that skink look like it's part of its habitat. And all the way down here, just a little bit, maybe a bit of extra grass here and there, wherever you might need it. Lovely. So I'm pretty happy with that in terms of pen, but because Simon has such a delightful blue tongue, I thought it only right for me to just add a little bit of that in. And so with a coloured pencil, what I'm going to do is just start to add a little bit of blue there. And actually I've got 3 different blues with these coloured pencils, and what I want to do is just layer them over each other. And so I've got a medium blue, this is my lighter blue, so I'm just going to have that a little bit more towards the end. And what's quite nice as well when you're working with coloured pencil is just to still make sure you leave a bit of a highlight. So where Simon's tongue is just catching the light there, I'm just going to leave that little strand of white. And then with a darker blue as well, so I'm just going to do the area where it's coming out of the mouth there. So what you want to do is just build up a nice rich tone with all your different blues. It's just more interesting to look at really than just one colour. Makes it more exciting. Brilliant. And then what we might want to do is just at the very last, just give Simon a nice yellow eye. And I think that's enough for me. Sometimes I like to just keep drawings black and white with a hint of colour. So with that in mind, I'm going to sign it again. Again, not dating any drawings because no idea what date it actually is, but I hope you had a good time. And I look forward to seeing your versions of Simon the Skink. Well, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed drawing and learning about Simon the Blue-tongued Skink. We would absolutely love to see your drawings, so please send them in. If you want to send them via email, it's info@wildlifedrawing.co.uk, or you can tag them on Instagram with @wildlifedrawing. We would love to see them, and also if you do send them in, you'll be in with a chance to win tickets for a future wildlife drawing class. And finally, if you have the means to do so, Lauren has set up an animal feed fund to just help in this tricky time when she hasn't got a lot of money coming in. So if you did want to give Simon a little snack to say thank you, details of where to donate will be right at the end of the video. So thanks again for watching, take care and see you soon.